Oof.
And Nick, I've lost count how many times we've done this, mate. And I still don't quite actually believe it, but it's looking like it's going to happen. It's a Jon Jones fight week at heavyweight, baby. How excited are you?
Listen, ever since this fight was announced, I've kept a lid on it because for the last 3 years, I've wrote about, I've speculated, I've debated, I've got excited countless times about the return of, let's be honest, the GOAT, Johnny Bones Jones, coming back to the octagon, coming back motivated. I've done it. I've said everything there is to say about it. And I've refused to get excited. But now we're within touching distance. Now it's a matter of days away. It's time to let the lid off. It's time to go crazy because the big man is back. I cannot wait.
And Mike, he's used a different tact. I don't know if you've seen any of the interviews that he's just started filtering out in the light of UFC 285. He started making friends and saying nice things about DC. I feel all over the place, mate. I'm going to be honest with you. I do feel a little bit all over the place with Jon and his tact coming into fight week at the moment, pal.
Yeah, well, he's trying to do the old nice routine, isn't he? You know what I mean? But listen, it doesn't matter because when he steps foot inside that octagon, we know what he's capable of. The man is a straight-up killer. Remember, the youngest UFC champion that the sport has ever seen, dominated for many, many years. Yes, there's one loss on his record. He should be undefeated. He was dominating Matt Hamill. The referee made a mistake. But yeah, 3 years in the making this is. The anticipation is there. The build-up is there. The opponent is there. Ciryl Gane. I mean, this is not a walk in the park. This is not a gimme. This is not, Jon Jones is back, let's throw him a bone. This is a real fight, and there's a lot of questions because he's packed on the muscle. I can't wait.
There's no layups. There's no tune-ups. This is the UFC, baby. This is the best against the best. If you want to be the best, you've got to beat the best, and that's what we're getting at UFC 285. We've got 2 fantastic title fights to talk you through, and a phenomenal card. I'm not over-egging this. I know that people, when they tune into this, go, oh, here they go again, these lads. Absolutely hyping the living daylights, that stuff. I don't even need to talk. I could just show you the card and you'd be absolutely salivating at the prospect of what is going to go down inside that cage come Saturday night. We've got a great card to preview and we're going to get through the whole goddamn lot for you. But we are going to start with the main event, of course. It is the vacant heavyweight championship of the world. Ciryl Gane, former interim champion, will be standing across the cage from Jon Jones. Mike, as you imagine the silhouettes of these two gentlemen dancing for us in the dark, how do you see the styles matching up?
I mean, my word. I mean, where do you start? Where do you start? Let's remember this. You know, listen, Jon Jones, as I just said, the greatest of all time, potentially. The pound for pound number 1 right now, I'd say so. Shut up, Volk. Shut up, Islam, before you all start. They're amazing. They're 2 and 3. That's not an insult. But Jon Jones is the pound for pound number 1. He is the GOAT and he is returning. However, even though he can get the job done everywhere, great striking, amazing jiu-jitsu, submitted black belts, wrestling for days, he's stepping up a weight class. He's going up against Ciryl Gane, a man that turned Francis Ngannou into a wrestler, a man that took the best shots from Francis Ngannou and then fired back. And as I say, in rounds 3, 4 and 5, Francis was like, I don't like this, I'm going to take him down. So, of course, when you look at that, you see a path to victory for Jon Jones. But will he be able to do that? Is he as strong as Francis Ngannou? Is he a better wrestler? Yes, without question. Does he have better technique? Of course, you know, but at 260 pounds, whatever he's going to weigh in at, can he continue that relentless pressure for over 5 rounds without getting tired? That is one of the main questions. Will he be as fast? Will he be as explosive? More than likely he will. Let's be honest, the man's one of a kind. He's the pound for pound Don, whatever you want to call him. Right, so he's done the homework. He'll show up prepared, but bet your bottom dollar, so will Ciryl Gane. On the feet, I've got Ciryl Gane. If Jones can get the takedown, I've got him cruising to a victory. But there's a lot of ifs, buts and maybes in this fight, baby.
But that is the beautiful thing about it, Nick, because he's not taking on what would be classed as a traditional heavyweight from maybe with the last time that Jon Jones actually fought. He's taking on a 2.0 version of the heavyweight, and Ciryl Gane is the perfect epitome of that. He is light on the feet. He is this new generation, and that's what's making this so captivating as a matchup.
Yeah, listen, I would argue that if there was no Jon Jones circa 2010, 2014, changing the game, lighting people up like this, it's nobody's business, then potentially there is no Bon Gaiman, there is no Tom Aspinall, there is no next generation heavyweight inspired by the movements of this big 6'4" dominant light heavyweight that Jon Jones was. So yes, he did change the game back then, but the game has caught up, and that's what makes this so intriguing. When I think about this fight, I've got to be honest, I don't think about Jon Jones, Anthony Smith Jon Jones, or the Thiago Santos Jon Jones, or the Dominic Reyes version of Jon Jones. And that may be me being a romantic, but I think of Jon Jones from a decade ago. Jon Jones, who was lighting people up, the first guy to stop Rampage, choking out Lyoto Machida, beating up Rashad Evans, beating up Shogun Rua, beating up basically the who's who Hall of Fame of UFC. That's the Jon Jones I remember, and that's the Jon Jones I believe we're going to get on Saturday night. I believe he was bored. I believe he ran out of challenges. Once DC and Gustafsson and those back-to-back wins, those 2 wins, were kind of laid to rest, I think Jon Jones ran out of motivation. I think he's going to come back motivated. I think he's going to come back knowing that one mistake, Ciryl Gane can iron him out. If he doesn't get on his toes, Ciryl Gane will dance around him and light him up. And if he's not careful, Ciryl Gane will have learned from Ngannou and will have some good takedown defense. That means we're getting the very best of Jon Jones at this stage in his career. That's why I'm excited, because I believe he isn't yet, Mike. He's not the pound for pound man right now.
Come on.
But if he stops Ciryl Gane, it's hard to argue that he isn't, because the GOAT will be back.
But that's the question. Does he still have that fire, or has he ran out of gasoline, as we say? Has he ran out of petty? Okay, because, of course, when he signed with the UFC, he was demolishing everybody, and it was something to behold. And then, as we know, towards the end of, 3 years ago, wasn't quite the same. Now, granted, he came out recently, and I get it. He said the fear wasn't there. And he's right. Fear can be your best friend or your worst enemy. But in a fight, you want that. It gives you the adrenaline. It keeps you on edge. It makes you anxious. It makes you fight hard. Okay? But that's a convenient line also. Do you know what I mean? He still had Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos, and Dominic Reyes trying to knock his head off. What, are you telling me you're bored? You telling me you're just standing there waiting for a bus? Or is that what Jon Jones is like right now? Because eventually, when you step into these high-level situations, ridiculous pressure, high adrenaline, fighting the best fighters in the world, one after the other, after the other, after the other, eventually it tames you. It's like trying to tame a wild animal. He's tamed himself, that he's been in there so long, and he might have calmed down and become a nice, civilized human being. Now, we know that's not the case outside the octagon, but is that the case these days inside the octagon? We don't know. I'm expecting a very, very hungry Jon Jones, a man that wants to come back, remind the world who he is, why he's considered so great, and put a beat down on Ciryl Gane like we've never seen or we never imagined possibly. And that is what makes this so exciting.
One thing I will say is, Jon Jones, for me, he was at the peak of his powers until he ran into Gustafsson. Then he had that absolute war with Gustafsson, probably the greatest light heavyweight fight in history still, although it's had some good competition recently. One of the greatest title fights of all time. After that fight, he was never quite the same Jon Jones, except when he had the rivalry with DC and when he faced Gustafsson. But you could argue, well, Gustafsson left himself a little piece of himself in the octagon that night, just like Jon Jones. Maybe he left more than Jon Jones, which is why Jon got the finish. But it was after those fights, again, DC rivalry aside, where he was motivated. All his wins after that were decision wins. They were rudimentary. He did get a little bit stale. But even GSP, one of the other greatest of all time, he's come out and said the same thing about his welterweight career. The weight of the throne gets heavy. And in the end, the risk of losing counterbalance against the risk of putting yourself in harm's way to do sensational things. And I think that's where we were with Jon Jones. But he's got to be sensational at heavyweight. He can't labour his way to victories because these eyes are too big and it only takes one shot.
And if he's not sensational, he's going to get sensationally knocked out. Because let's remember, Ciryl Gane knocked out Derek Lewis, knocked out Tai Tuivasa, turned Francis Ngannou into a wrestler. And I can't emphasize how important that is. Francis Ngannou is one of the most scariest human beings that the planet Earth has ever seen. Do you know what I mean? He is a freak of nature, and I mean that in a very positive way. And he turned that man into a wrestling machine because he didn't like he was receiving on the feet. That's, again, what makes this fight incredible.
How much, Mike, will that extra weight affect Jon, do you think? Given the skill set that we've seen at light heavyweight, that run that Nick was speaking about moments ago, extra 40, 50 pounds on that frame, how much does it affect what he does in the octagon?
Well, it depends what kind of weight it is. If it is 40 pounds of fast twitch muscle fiber, it's going to make him just as fast and just as explosive as what he was. If it's a little bit of flab, which I guarantee there will be a bit of that, more than likely it's going to slow him down. But it all comes down to the work he's done in the gym and the time away in these 3 years. Has he been hard at work in the gym, rebuilding his body. Certainly looks like it, sounds like it from what we see, but you can't believe everything you see on social media. Like, you think I was just having a good time in Australia, drinking at wine bars and stuff like that. I was working, baby, all day, every day. Right, but yeah. I had a bit of a hangover on some of those days. It was weird. But what has Jon been doing? You know, more than likely he's been preparing for this moment, preparing to go 5 rounds. Will it be as fast? We don't know. Can he go 5 rounds just as hard? We don't know. I do believe there has to be some give and take. There has to, naturally. You know what I mean? If he's going to be heavier, he's going to slow down a bit and he's going to get tired a little bit quicker. Now, I'm not saying that he can't go 5 rounds. I'm not saying that it won't affect him so negatively that he can't win. But I just think it's just physics. He's a bigger, stronger, larger, heavier man. There is going to be, there'll be positives and there'll be negatives.
Nick, on Ciryl, because obviously we're going big on Jon because we've not seen him for such a long period of time. It's a heavyweight debut. Yeah. We've all been extremely excited about it, and rightfully so. But also, from a Ciryl point of view, he's only been here a minute. And look at what this man has already achieved in the UFC. It's been absolutely tremendous. Imagine if he goes in to the octagon at the weekend and beat what many would class as the greatest mixed martial artist of all time to become the heavyweight champion. That's a story within itself.
Yeah, there's two ways to look at it. You know, there's one way of saying Ciryl Gane's the perfect opponent, because if Jon needs to, he goes back to his wheelhouse, which is his grappling, and Ciryl Gane's probably the weakest grappler in the top 5, you could argue. But the other way to look at it is Ciryl Gane's got the golden ticket. Ciryl Gane's the guy that gets Jon Jones fresh after a 3-year layoff, who's still getting to know his body, still doesn't know how that big frame's going to react inside the octagon, especially if he's pushed over 25 minutes. Still didn't know, I'll be honest, whether Jon Jones got the hunger in his heart to go through what you need to go through to be a world champion. We haven't seen that for a while. Again, he coasted to a few wins towards the end. So Ciryl Gane's in this fantastic opportunity and he likes to start fast, Ciryl Gane, as well. He's nice and light on his feet. He's not going to be an easy target for Jon Jones. But Ciryl Gane is creative, like Jon Jones is creative on the feet. He likes to throw spinning elbows. He likes to throw kicks to head, to body. He mixes up his work really well. And as I say, he's got that good fast twitch muscle fibre that gets in and out of range really quickly. I think Ciryl Gane will absolutely... There's a reason why he threw his hat in the ring when it looked like Francis was going to walk. If you realise, it was Ciryl Gane that went, I'll do it. I'll fight Jon Jones first. And he's the guy that's got the fight before anybody else.
Yeah.
If the fight stays on the feet, Ciryl Gane is going to knock Jon Jones out unconscious.
Wow. That is a statement.
It's a big statement. Well, let's go there then, shall we? Because obviously we've built it up. It doesn't need any more build-up. The fans, I know that you sat there going, just give me the fight. Give me the fight. I'm ready for the fight. I want the fight right now. You've got a few more days to wait before the fight hits you, all right? So the boys, let's go in there. Mike, I'll come to you first and foremost on the main event. How do you think it will play out? Who will be the victor? Who will be the heavyweight champion?
I think Jon's going to realise that Ciryl Gane is something special. You know, out of all the heavyweights, I mean, when it comes to on the feet, he's probably the best. You know, that we've got in all of the heavyweight division. As we just said, Derek Lewis, Taito Avasa was beating Ngannou. You know, this is not a good opponent to come back to when you're testing the waters at a new weight class against a guy that can move, that's so nimble, fast, agile, switches stances, knockout power in every part of his body. That's a tough night at the office, because remember, Jon was never a knockout artist. He was very creative. He was very inventive. He always found a way to beat his opponents, a master of game plans and takedowns and all the rest of it. But a knockout artist he was never. Ciryl Gane is. And I think he's going to get clipped, right? And he's going to get a takedown. And he is going to be full of fire. He is going to be ready. Got to remember, Jon Jones, right? I said it. He's the GOAT, more than likely. He's the pound for pound number 1, in my opinion. And he is also a proud man that is jumping on Twitter every time people talk of Khabib or Volkanovski, and he's always quick to point out and say, hold on a minute, what about me? You forgot about me. And fighters do hold that very dear. They're very proud of their accomplishments, and he feels like he's been overlooked. So that will be driving him. Yes, he's got the money, he's got the silk sheets and all those analogies, whatever you want to use, but he isn't getting the pride. He feels disrespected, right, from the entire MMA community. That is what's driving him. That is why he's here to prove a point, not to himself. He knows what he's capable of. He's here to prove to the entire goddamn world, hey, remember me? You all forgot about me. I'm going to show you. And that makes him extremely dangerous. He's going to run a double leg through Ciryl Gane. He's going to pick him up high. He's going to slam him on his head. And then he's going to go to Elbow City. And it is going to be a TKO in round 1, 2, or 3. It doesn't matter. The finish is coming. I love Ciryl Gane. I will not talk bad about Ciryl Gane. He's a legend. He's a gentleman. He is a gentleman. Whatever you want to call him, he's fantastic. But he's going to lose this fight.
I honestly thought for a split second there, Nick, he was going to break into Roy Jones Jr. You must have forgot. That's where I thought he was going with that little speech. Beautiful. So we've got Jon Jones by finish at some point for a Mike. What are you thinking, Nick?
It was that Jon Jones will finish him in 1 or 2 or 3. And I was like, in 1? Oh, 2. Oh, maybe 3. Oh, all right, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, I was like, hold on a minute. I've got to give Ciryl a bit of respect here. Do you know, I went, in 1.
Absolutely.
2. Anyway, sorry, my bad.
Again, in my mind, when I go to sleep at night and dream about the GOAT coming back to the octagon, it's not the guy that went the distance with Dom Reyes or the distance with Thiago Santos. It's the guy that took pleasure out of beating people at their own game, the guy that out-wrestled the DC, the guy that out-slammed Rampage and out-punched Lyoto Machida and choked them out and everything else. That's the version of Jon Jones I envisage coming back. I think the first round will be really entertaining. I think Ciryl Gane will have success. At some stage, he will be put on his back, and Jon Jones will realise that he's got the advantage there. But you know what? I can see this finishing up against the fence, elbows, nice high guard, maybe even some kind of standing submission. But I can see Jon tying him up inside. If not elbows, slashing him. I think this will be a submission victory for Jon Jones, either standing or with Ciryl Gane giving up his back to protect his face.
Wow.
But I do want to throw in this little caveat. He could get sparkled.
Yeah. It's the heavyweight division, baby. Anything could happen.
He could get knocked out cold, which would just be mind-blowing.
Yep.
Nick,
that's what makes it such a great fight, because I'm so confident Jones wins. Yeah. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, but Ciryl Gane could knock him out cold.
He could.
Yeah.